The morning I became a millionaire, I was eating a gas station hot dog I hadn't paid for. Not stolen, Jimmy, the overnight clerk at the Shell on Meridian Avenue, had known me long enough to slide one across the counter without a word. That's the kind of man I had become at 62 years old. A man whose meals depended on the quiet mercy of a 24-year-old kid who smelled like energy drinks and cigarette smoke. I ate standing outside, leaning against the brick wall in the November cold, watching a pigeon fight a French fry on the sidewalk, thinking that pigeon and I had more in common than I'd like to admit. My name is Daniel Mercer, and this is the story of the day everything changed, and the day my daughter, Renee, finally ran out of things to say. The Cardboard Kingdom. For 14 months, I had been living out of a blue tent behind the Dollar General on Whitmore Street. Before that, I had a room at the Crossroads Motel, $38 a night, mold on the ceiling, neighbors who screamed through walls thin as paper. Before the motel, I had an apartment on the east side. Before the apartment, I had a house. A real house, with a yard and a garage and a kitchen that smelled like coffee every morning. Before all of it, I had a wife named Carol. Carol died of ovarian cancer in the spring of 2019. We had been married 31 years. I don't say that to ask for your sympathy. I say it because what happened after Carol died is the only explanation for everything else. Some men grieve quietly. Some men grieve loudly. I grieved expensively, bourbon at $40 a bottle, blackjack tables in the back of a bar in Reno, a loan from a man whose name I was smart enough to never write down. Within 2 years of burying my wife, I had buried my savings, my credit, my sobriety, and most of my dignity right alongside her. My daughter Renee was living in Scottsdale by then. Nice house, nice husband, nice car. She had married a man named Trevor who sold commercial real estate and wore his shirts one size too small to show off arms. He worked on 3 mornings a week at a gym that charged more per month than I had spent on groceries in my final year of homeownership. Trevor was not a bad man. He just had the particular energy of someone who had never failed at anything important, and therefore assumed failure was a character defect, like lying or poor hygiene. Renee called me twice after I lost the house. The first call was tense. The second call was a verdict. "Dad, I love you, but I can't keep watching you do this to yourself. Trevor and I talked, and we think that until you get serious about getting help, we need some distance. The kids can't see their grandfather like this. Do you understand what I'm saying?" I understood. I was being voted off the island by my own daughter. I didn't call her again. I still had enough pride left for that. The scratch ticket. That November morning, after finishing the hot dog Jimmy had given me, I reached into the pocket of my coat, a heavy canvas thing I'd found at a church donation bin, and pulled out a lottery scratch ticket. I hadn't bought it. I want to be clear about that, because Renee would later suggest I had wasted what little I had on gambling, which is the kind of thing people say when they want the story to be about your flaws. A woman named Gloria, who ran the soup kitchen on 4th Street and had a laugh like a truck engine turning over, had bought a sheet of 10 scratch tickets for the clients as a sort of early Thanksgiving treat. "A little hope costs $1, she always said, pressing them into our palms like communion wafers. Mine was a red and gold ticket called Golden Fortune, 10 spots to scratch. Match 3 amounts, win that amount. I scratched it leaning against that same brick wall, using a penny I kept in my pocket for exactly this kind of occasion. I scratched the first row, nothing. Second row, nothing. I almost stopped. I'm not a superstitious man, but I remember thinking that this was about right hope in a foil wrapper, same as always. Then I scratched the third row. The first box said $1 million. I looked at it. I scratched the second box slowly, the way you do when you think you already know the answer and you're afraid of being right. $1 million. My hand was not shaking. I want you to know that. My hand was absolutely steady when I scratched the third box, because by that point something in my brain had gone very quiet and very calm, the way it does in moments that are too large for the usual noise. $1 million. I stood there for a long time. The pigeon had won its battle with the French fry. A bus went by. Jimmy came outside to sweep the front step, looked at me and said, "You okay, Daniel? You look like you saw a ghost." "Jimmy," I said, "I need you to look at something for me." He looked at the ticket for a long time. Then he looked at me. Then he looked at the ticket again. "Daniel," he said slowly, "I think you need to go to the lottery office." "I think you're right," I said. The longest bus ride. The lottery office was 11 miles away. I took the Route 7 bus, holding that ticket inside my coat, pressed against my chest with one hand, like a man protecting a heartbeat. I sat in the back, next to a woman with a sleeping toddler on her lap, and I stared out the window at the city moving past, the pawn shops and the laundromats, the bail bondsmen and the check-cashing places, the whole beautiful, brutal economy of people living very close to the edge, and I thought about Carol. She used to play scratch tickets every Friday, just one or two, never more. She called it her weekly daydream. I used to tease her about it, tell her the odds were ridiculous, that she might as well throw the dollar into a fountain. She would smile that particular smile she had, patient and a little superior, and say, "Daniel, sometimes the point isn't winning. The point is having something to look forward to." I wished she could have seen this. I also thought about Renee. I'm not going to lie and say I didn't. I'm not a saint. I thought about her face when she'd find out. I thought about that phone call, "We think we need some distance. The kids can't see their grandfather like this." And I felt something move through me that was not quite anger and not quite satisfaction, but something in between. Something that I was not proud of but was not going to pretend I didn't feel. The lottery official, a woman named Sandra with reading glasses on a beaded chain, verified the ticket with the careful efficiency of someone who had learned not to get excited on behalf of other people. She ran it through the scanner twice. She called a colleague over. They both looked at me, this man in a canvas coat with a tent smell he could no longer detect on himself, and Sandra said, "Mr. Mercer, this is a validated winning ticket. $1 million. "Yes," I said. "Are you all right?" "Getting there," I said. The long road back. I won't pretend the money fixed everything immediately because that would be dishonest and also boring. After taxes, and there are always taxes, the lump sum came to $642,000. Not $1 billion, not never work again and buy a yacht money, but enough. More than enough for a man who had learned the precise value of enough. The first thing I did was get a room at the Hampton Inn. Not the motel on the highway, the real Hampton Inn downtown, with a shower that had water pressure like God's own opinion. I stood under that shower for 40 minutes. I cried in there, where no one could see me, not from joy exactly, more from the kind of relief that has been waiting so long it has learned to disguise itself as grief. The second thing I did was call Gloria at the soup kitchen and write her a check for $20,000. She told me to stop being ridiculous. I told her that the ridiculous part was that it wasn't more. The third thing I did was find a financial advisor, a real one, not the kind who sets up in strip malls and spend 3 months doing nothing rash. I rented a small apartment. I bought a decent coat. I started eating real meals and seeing a doctor, and eventually, a therapist named Dr. Okonkwo, who had a very useful habit of asking, "And what were you telling yourself about your own worth at that moment?" At exactly the moments when I didn't want to answer it. I got sober, not because the money made sobriety easy, but because the money removed all my excuses for not trying. I had run out of things to blame. That's what money actually buys you if you're paying attention. It buys you the removal of the excuses that were always the real problem. Slowly, over about 8 months, I became a person again. Not the person I was before Carol died. That man was gone, and I had made peace with that. A new person. Older, quieter, more deliberate. Someone who knew exactly how close to disappearing he had come, and who did not intend to waste the second chance. The phone call. Renee found out the way people find out things now, the internet. A local news outlet had run a small piece. Local man wins $1 million lottery scratch ticket. There was a photo of me that Sandra had taken on the day of the verification. I looked startled in it, which was accurate. My phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting on the small balcony of my apartment, drinking coffee, real coffee, not the gas station kind, watching the city below with the quiet pleasure of a man who has learned not to take anything for granted. "Dad," Renee's voice was different from the last time. The cool, managed distance was gone. She sounded uncertain, which was a sound I hadn't heard from her since she was a teenager. "I saw the article." "I figured." A long pause. "I didn't know things had gotten so bad. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know you were." She stopped. "Living in a tent," I said gently. "You can say it." "Dad." "Renee," I set down my coffee. I had thought about this conversation many times, imagined many versions of it, including some where I was cold and some where I was cruel and some where I simply did not answer the phone. But Dr. Okonkwo had asked me once, what would it cost you to give her a chance to be better than she was? And I had thought about that for a long time. I'm not calling you to tell you it was all right. It wasn't all right. I needed my daughter and she wasn't there. Silence. But I'm also not calling to punish you for it forever. Life is too short and I have wasted enough of it. I paused. I'd like to meet my grandchildren if you'll let me. She was crying by then, not pretty crying, the real kind with breathing problems. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. Trevor kept saying, and I was so angry at you for what happened after Mom died, and I think I just—" "I know," I said. "I was angry at me too." "The visit." "I flew to Scottsdale in the spring. I wore new clothes, nothing flashy, just clean and well-fitted, and I rented a sensible car, and I drove to my daughter's house in a neighborhood with palm trees and terracotta roofs and lawn services that arrived on Thursdays." Trevor shook my hand with what I can only describe as visible recalibration. He was a man who sorted people by category, and I had been firmly filed under one category for years, and now he was holding the file, and the file said something entirely different, and his hand was shaking mine while his eyes were trying to update his own internal system. I felt something that was almost affection for him in that moment. It is profoundly human, after all, to take time to see past what you expect to see. My grandchildren were 9 and 7. Their names were Milo and Cora. Milo was solemn and curious in the way of children who listen more than they speak. Cora was loud and confident and had a laugh exactly like Carol's, sudden, wide, no apology for it, and the first time I heard it I had to look out the window for a moment. They had not been told much. Just that Grandpa Daniel was coming to visit. Cora climbed onto the couch next to me within 5 minutes and asked, with no preamble, "Why didn't you come before?" Children ask the questions adults arrange furniture around. "I wasn't ready," I told her honestly. Sometimes grown-ups have to figure some things out before they can be the person someone else needs. She considered this with the focused skepticism of a 7-year-old. "Are you ready now?" "Yes," I said, "I really am." She nodded, apparently satisfied, and asked if I wanted to see her hamster. Its name was Lord Fluffington III, a name so magnificent that I told her it was the best name I had ever heard, and she beamed at me with Carol's eyes and Carol's joy, and for the first time in years, I felt something I had nearly forgotten the shape of. I felt at home. What money actually did. People want the money to be the miracle. They want the scratch ticket to be the moment the story turned, but that's not how it actually went. The money bought time. It bought the removal of daily desperation. It bought a shower at the Hampton Inn where I could cry until I was empty, and a good therapist and real coffee on a small balcony. What it could not buy, what I had to earn separately, with no shortcut available, was the willingness to keep going. The choice, made again each morning, to be someone worth the second chance. I still visit Milo and Cora every 3 months. Cora is teaching me to play chess, though her style of teaching involves a great deal of unsolicited commentary on my tactical failures. Lord Fluffington III has since been succeeded by Lord Fluffington IV, following a solemn ceremony Cora presided over with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. Renee and I are not yet what we were before Carol died. Maybe we never will be, but we are something honest and careful and willing. And I have learned to find more value in that than in any fantasy of perfect repair. Trevor still looks at me sometimes like he's trying to solve an equation. I've decided I find this charming. The last thing. On my last visit to Scottsdale, as I was getting ready to leave, Renee walked me to the rental car. The afternoon light was that particular shade of gold that Arizona does better than anywhere, the kind of light that makes even ordinary things look briefly mythological. She hugged me for a long time, not the careful, performative hug of someone managing a relationship, a real one, the kind where you actually hold on. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet. She opened her mouth, and I could see her searching for something large enough for the moment, some apology, some summation, some word that would carry the full weight of everything. She couldn't find one, and that was fine. Sometimes the right sentence is the one you discover you don't need anymore. I got in the car. I drove toward the airport. I drove through that golden light with the windows down, feeling the warm desert air, thinking about Carol, thinking about the pigeon and the French fry, thinking about a scratch ticket pressed against a heartbeat on the back of a Route 7 bus. I was 63 years old. I had lost nearly everything. I had come back from a place most people don't come back from. I had 2 grandchildren, one of whom was teaching me chess with barely concealed contempt for my abilities, and a daughter who was trying, and a small apartment with a balcony where the coffee was always good. The lottery had given me the money, but I had done the rest myself. And that, I think, is the part of the story that actually matters.